was just wondering if maybe Les could talk about if we were to take the amount, the $35,000 or whatever it is, $35,000 to $40,000, and put it in a reserve, if that's legal for us to do, and how does it affect the Board of Education's side?
There's somewhat uncharted waters here because it's, although there's case law on the subject out there, not exactly on point, but the way the mayor explained, and I understood the situation exactly as he just said, that what happened here, and the legal arguments here would be rather extended. I'm not even going to get into those. There are a number of issues that I've seen in the cases that would be used here, but the short story for this purpose is that according to the relevant law, which is your own charter as well as the state law, that a financing board, which includes in this case the city council, appropriates a certain amount of money to its Board of Education. If it exceeds that appropriation, then there has to be a supplemental appropriation approval by the same body, the city council. All right. So now the question is, why is this a supplemental appropriation? I've determined that it is a supplemental appropriation based on a couple of facts. One is that the city council was not apprised of the allocation of this amount of money for that purpose. The relevant minutes of the committee of the board of the city council, Colleen, your committee, indicated that when Councilman Seabury brought up the question of cabinet raises, the comment that's a record in the minutes was that this will be dealt with later. The implication of that is that it was not to be in the appropriated budget, and in fact, based on that alone, it would not be in the appropriated budget. Therefore, it would have to be a supplemental appropriation based on that fact alone. Additionally to that, it's implied within the approval of the Board of Finance or City Council in this case that when it appropriates money to the school board, it appropriates it with knowledge of what it's being appropriated for. And as a subset, but an important subset of that, it also has to be aware of an appropriation when it has a multi-year effect. And probably of all the points, that may be the strongest point, where that if the Board of Education, subsequent to the appropriation by the City Council, provided a salary benefit that extends into further years, that is not in accordance with the appropriation for that year. So there are a number of arguments here that give credence to the City Council being able to reserve that amount, or authorizing the mayor to reserve that amount of money, whatever the amount is, and they can deal with it, the council can deal with it as a supplemental appropriation, give it to them, or they can continue to reserve that amount of money and not provide it. Now, second, final, as to the question of whether the Board of Education can nonetheless allocate that amount of money to the cabinet members, it's possible that itself could be an ultra vires act. An ultra vires act meaning that it's an act beyond the capability of the Board of Education to do, for the reasons I mentioned in the appropriation problem itself. That is something that would have to be tested. It's very possible, as the mayor suggested before, that they could do it and just, wave their finger at the city council. I think they might have a problem with that, though, because of the issues I first mentioned. So that can be a back burner issue, but the point of fact is that they have a problem with doing it this way, essentially denying the council the opportunity to factor this into their appropriation. I think that's the biggest problem here for supporting the reservation.
I appreciate you making that point, because one of my major concerns was that if we were to put the $35,000 to $40,000 in reserve, that's exactly what will happen, that they would still receive their raises, that they would still receive their appropriated raises, and we really would maybe affect the school. And also, once the money is appropriated, and it's not like we're putting the money back into our taxpayers' pockets.
There's nothing you can do about that if they decide to allocate that anyway, except to file an action of some sort, and we can talk about that also, to try to join that activity. It's possible you can do that. Again, that's untested. That's something that would be an interesting thing to see. I mean, since it's a relatively small amount of money, it may not be noticeable in the allocation to whatever they want to use it for, but if the mayor has indicated the message would be sent in the first case by reserving the funds, an additional message would be sent and saying, if you guys continue down the road of actually allocating this anyway, we may have other resources and measures we can look at.
Do we have any questions from the council? Mr. Visconti?
Through the chair to Corporation Council. You mentioned, Les, that this could be tested by the Board of Ed if we were to do this, take the money back. What are we talking, when you use the word tested, are we talking litigation or whatever?
They would file in court a request for what's called a declaratory judgment. And that means that they would put the issue in the table in front of the court, the city would be called in, and the court would essentially hear arguments, and the court would render, essentially it's not a judgment after a full case, it's a shorter version of a case, but a judgment would be rendered on that issue by the court.
And follow up, where would we stand due to the arbitration award? Was that, what kind of role does that actually play, if any, in this?
Nothing in this.
Nothing in this?
No.
Yeah, they're not union.
Okay.